If you look at the desktop computer market today, Microsoft Windows has basically won. It is the default. But if you look literally everywhere else, Windows is a minority. The internet you are browsing right now running on Linux. The Android phone in your pocket powered by a Linux kernel. The smart TV in your living room, the entertainment system in your car, the stock exchange, the supercomputers mapping the human genome, and the systems running the International Space Station, all Linux. It is the most successful piece of software in human history. It runs the modern world. But the crazy part is, it was never supposed to exist. It wasn't built by a billion-dollar tech giant in Silicon Valley. It was created by a 21-year-old college student in Finland, who was basically just bored and annoyed. This is the story of how a hobby project accidentally conquered the world, why it failed to conquer the personal desktop, and how a video game company named Valve is single-handedly trying to fix that. To understand why Linux matters, we have to go back to the 1980s. Back then, operating systems were closed off, incredibly expensive, and strictly controlled by massive corporations. The biggest operating system was Unix, but you had to pay a fortune just to look at the source code. Enter Richard Stallman. He believed software should be free, not just free as in cost, but free as in liberty. You should be able to see the code, modify it, and share it. So in 1983, he launched the GNU project. The goal was to build a completely free open source operating system. Over the next few years, the GNU team built almost everything they needed. They built the compilers, the text editors, and the command line tools. But by 1991, they were still missing the most important piece, the kernel. Kernel is the core of an operating system. It is the bridge between the physical hardware of your computer and the software trying to use it. Without a kernel, an operating system is just a useless pile of code. The GNU team was trying to build their own kernel called the Herd, but it was incredibly complex and constantly delayed. The open source world had the car, but they didn't have an engine. Meanwhile, in Finland, a 21-year-old computer science student named Linus Torvalds had just bought a new PC with an Intel 386 processor. He wanted to run a Unix-like system on it, but he couldn't afford the commercial licenses. He was using an educational system called Minix, but it was restricted, and the creator didn't want people modifying it. Linus was frustrated. He just wanted a terminal emulator so he could connect to his university's server from his bedroom. So he decided to write his own. He started writing code directly for the hardware. Eventually his terminal emulator grew. He added disk drivers, he added a file system. Without really meaning to, he was building an entire operating system kernel from scratch. On August 25, 1991, Linus posted a message to an internet news group. It is now one of the most famous posts in internet history. He wrote, "I'm doing a free operating system, just a hobby, won't be a big and professional like GNU, for 386 clones." He eventually uploaded code to an FTP server under the name Linux, a mix of Linus and Unix. Linus could have kept it to himself, but in 1992 he made the single most important decision in software history. He released the Linux kernel under the GNU General Public License, or GPL. The GPL has a very specific rule. Anyone can use, modify, and distribute the code, but if you make improvements, you must release your new code back to the public under the same free license. This was the spark that lit the fire. Suddenly, developers all over the world saw this functional kernel. They realized they could combine the GNU tools, which were missing an engine, with the Linux kernel, which was missing the tools. Together it formed a complete, fully functional, entirely free operating system, GNU Linux. Because of the internet, thousands of programmers started contributing to the kernel. If a developer needed Linux to run on a new piece of hardware, they just wrote the driver and gave it back to the community. By the late 19th and early 20s, massive corporations woke up. Companies like IBM, Oracle, and Red Hat realized that instead of spending millions developing their own proprietary systems, they could just use Linux for free, pool their resources, and improve it together. In the year 2000, IBM famously invested $1 billion in the Linux development. From there, Linux took over the enterprise world. It was stable, it was secure, and it didn't cost $1,000 per license. It became the backbone of the internet. So, if Linux is so universally dominant, why are you probably watching this video on a Windows machine? Why did Linux completely fail to capture the personal home computer market? The answer is fragmentation. Because Linux is open source, anyone can take the kernel and build their own version of it. These are called distributions or distros. Today there are hundreds of them: Ubuntu, Arch, Fedora, Linux Mint. This is great for freedom, but it's a nightmare for mainstream adoption. Windows provides a single, unified target for software developers. If you write an app for Windows, it just works. But for decades, if a company wanted to make a Linux app, they had to worry about different package managers, different desktop environments, and missing dependencies. Because of this, major software companies ignored Linux. Adobe never ported Photoshop, Microsoft never ported Office, and most importantly, game developers never ported their games. Without games and professional apps, everyday users had no reason to switch. The year of the Linux desktop became a running joke in the tech community. A year that was always promised but never actually arrived. But then the gaming industry shifted, and it was all because of one man, Gabe Newell, the president of Valve. Around 2012, Microsoft released Windows 8. It introduced the Windows Store, a closed ecosystem where Microsoft took a cut of the profits. Gabe Newell publicly called Windows 8 a catastrophe for everyone in the PC space. He realized that Valve's entire business model, Steam, was at the mercy of Microsoft. If Microsoft ever locked down Windows like Apple locked down iOS, Steam will be dead. Valve needed an escape hatch. They needed an operating system they could control that was free from corporate monopolies. They needed Linux. Valve's first attempt was the Steam machines in 2015, pre-built Linux gaming consoles. They failed miserably. The problem was simple. Nobody wanted a gaming machine that couldn't play Windows games, and developers were not going to rewrite their entire games for a platform nobody used. It was a catch. So Valve realized they couldn't wait for developers. They had to fix the problem themselves. They funded the development of Proton. Proton is a compatibility layer. It is essentially a real-time translator. When you launch a Windows game on Linux, Proton catches the Windows code and translates it into Linux code in real time, so the game runs perfectly without the developer having to lift a finger. Proton changed everything. Suddenly thousands of Windows games were perfectly playable on Linux. Valve packaged Proton into an Arch-based Linux distribution called SteamOS, and they put it inside a handheld console, the Steam Deck. Steam Deck proved to the entire world that a Linux desktop doesn't have to be as scary. It can be a seamless, beautiful, user-friendly experience. Millions of people are now daily driving an Arch Linux machine without even knowing it. Thanks to Valve, the gaming barrier is finally broken. Today, Linus Torvalds still oversees the Linux kernel, though he hardly writes code for it anymore. He just manages the thousands of developers who do. Linux is a testament of the power of open source collaboration. It proved that a global community of strangers freely sharing their work can build something vastly superior to a closed-off billion-dollar corporation. It started as a college kid who just wanted to check his university mails, and now 30 years later, it runs the planet.